Hello, and thank you for tuning into Late Night Hockey. My name is Steven Psihogios, and today I'm joined by a very special guest. I'm joined by one half of Winnipeg Sports Talk, and that's Michael Remis. Michael, thank you so much for joining the show tonight.
Yeah, Steven, thank you so much for having me. I'm pumped to be here on Late Night Hockey.
Yeah, and before we get into the Winnipeg Jets, because as you know, Michael covers the Winnipeg sports scene, let's get a little bit about Michael and tell us how you ended up where you are in sport media.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild story. Maybe not exactly the most traditional path. I didn't go to school for, any of this really. I had always been, proficient with computers and knowledgeable about online media, I guess going back all the way to 2007 now. I helped a friend create the illegalcurve.com website. That was on Blogspot. And then around 2010, they were doing a show on college radio, and I brought that one to live streaming in 2010 on something called Ustream, which is kind of funny because like now everyone is doing these live streams, and back in 2010, I don't think there were too many of those. And then from once we were doing that, the Winnipeg Jets came back to Winnipeg, and we were pretty well positioned to be a voice on Jets content. And then shortly after that, actually, I think it was before that, before the Jets even came back, TSN started Sports Radio 1290 in Winnipeg. So Illegal Curve moved from the college radio to Sports Radio 1290. Then the Jets came back, and then it kind of accelerated. And I ended up getting a job at TSN Radio in 2012, producing the midday show. So, a lot of hard work, but a little bit of luck as well. And now I work at TSN from 2012 to a couple months ago when it shut down. And now a colleague and I, Hustler, we started Winnipeg Sports Talk on YouTube and podcast, winnipegsportstalk.com. So it's been a long, when you ask me, it's been a long journey. 2007 feels like yesterday, but apparently that's like 14 years ago now.
Yeah, it's crazy how time changes. And like you said, too, how the media industry itself changes, right? You go from Blogspot to Ustream, and now those feel like so distant memories of media and all that. But now we'll jump into the Jets, and we'll start with the trade deadline. Winnipeg, not a typically active team at the deadline, wasn't active at this deadline. They pulled off one trade, though. They traded acquired Jordy Ben from the Vancouver Canucks for a 6th-round pick. What were your thoughts on that trade, Michael? I thought the Winnipeg Jets really needed a top 4 defenseman if they wanted to be serious about making a big push for the Cup. I don't know if Jordy Ben is that top 4 defenseman they were looking for, though.
Yeah, I agree. You look at their team, goalie, best goalie in the league. He's Vezina Trophy. I mean, you can argue Vasilevsky, whatever. He's among the best. Forward group, elite, scoring talent, up and down the lineup. Every line has contributed. It's been awesome. Defense, it's clear they don't have a number one defenseman. You look at the team that went to the Western Conference Final a couple years ago. They had Dustin Byfuglien, and since then, since Byfuglien, and they lost Sherratt, Myers, Trouba. I know Neil Pionk has been great stepping in for Trouba, but they really haven't, gone back. They used to have so much right side depth, and they really don't have that. So we were speculating, well, they need to make a big swing. They need to go for a number one guy. I guess Kevin Cheveldayoff, he said in his media conference on Monday that he tried to go for a big swing, and there's some speculation that, a deal fell through. Obviously, Jordy Ben, I mean, he's a depth defenseman. He's not there to be the guy. He's going to compete for playing time with Logan Stanley and Ville Heinola. So I think it was in the past, he has gone out when they needed a move, when they made the playoffs against Anaheim the first time. They acquired Lee Stempniak and Yuri Tolusti. Paul Stastny was one acquisition. The next time they made the playoffs, and then Kevin Hayes. So he's not afraid to spend a first-round pick for an impact player, but you look at the type of players that first-round picks are going for, David Savard and Nick Foligno, maybe, and I think David Savard was another pick as well. I guess he felt, look, you know what, I'm not going to pay that. And so other teams maybe wanted some of the prospects like Cole Perfetti, Ville Heinola, or Dylan Samberg, and he wasn't prepared to give away, those prospects for a rental who, would help them for a couple months and then not again. So I think it was a bit underwhelming. It was interesting on Monday after the deadline where the GM said, I think we have more depth than people are giving us credit for. A guy like Ville Heinola, who was the first round pick a couple years ago, he was on the All-Star team at World Juniors for Finland. He hasn't really had a chance, and we did see him in the lineup last game. I know this is recorded, but he's not in the lineup tonight against Edmonton. So maybe we'll try to work in some of these younger players and see if they can make an impact. But I think it was a bit of a disappointment, but it wasn't like other top defensemen were getting traded and the Jets weren't prepared to get enough. No, this was the least number of players at a deadline in a while. So it just seems maybe with the flat cap that there wasn't a lot of movement, and it just didn't work out for them, which is unfortunate. But they're competing. They beat Toronto the other night. They've shown that they have an elite goalie. Would another top defenseman help? Of course, but it seems like maybe their deal wasn't there.
I'm going to run down a few of the other defenseman trades that happened at the trade deadline. I want your opinion. If you were the GM of the Jets, if you would pull the trigger on this trade. We'll start off Eric Goodbranson for Brandon Fortunas and a 23 7th round pick. That was from Ottawa to Nashville. Would you make that deal?
No, I don't think Eric Goodbranson would crack the Jets' slump. I mean, I saw all these other defensemen get traded, and it seems like were they that much of an upgrade of what they have now? I think they like what they had in the room. They didn't want to mix it up just to bring someone. I mean, if you're going to mention Dmitry Kulikov for a fourth, maybe they considered bringing him back, but I think they had already gone down that road with him, and maybe didn't want to do that kind of match again.
All right, so next one, Ben Hutton for a fifth. If you're the GM of the Jets, yes or no on Ben Hutton for a fifth there?
Yeah, that one was kind of interesting, sure. But I don't know. Like, is he that much of an upgrade? I'm not sure. Any of these guys.
Yeah, exactly. So you look at the list, like Hayden Fleury got dealt with for Yanni Hakanpää and a 6. Would you do that as well, or obviously it'd have to be a little bit different considering the player also going back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm when you look at the other ones that went down, I'm kind of like, sure, Jordy Ben, he's got experience. Maybe he's not the best, but he can play both sides. I mean, he's going to compete for a spot. We'll see what he can do. So I'm okay with the other one we consider was Kulikov. Maybe Montour would be one, but I think what did he go for? Like the third or something?
Yeah, he caught a third going from Buffalo to Florida. So And I'm sure Florida would have gone up even a little bit more considering the injury to Ekblad if they had to get into a bidding war.
The other one was interesting was Mike Riley, and he's actually already made a nice impact with the Bruins because they're down a couple of guys. So that one could have worked, but it seemed like they didn't want to give around up the high draft pick. I thought it was in play, but maybe not for a guy who's more of like a bottom pair style defenseman rather than a top guy. That's kind of what I think.
I agree. I agree with your statement too that the Jets need a number one, and none of the players available at the deadline this year, especially I think with the Nashville Predators getting hot, none of the players available because you lose Ekholm and Ellis from Nashville's potential trade pieces. None of those guys remaining come deadline time were number one guys.
Yeah, we were talking about Ekholm for like 2 weeks. Leading up, at least like a month. Like, he's the guy. They're going to get him. Go all in on Ekholm. And then Nashville wins like however many go on this huge winning streak.
Yeah.
And he's no longer available. So David Savard was like the top target. And traditionally, the Jets have never gotten, there's always the names on the trade bait list from TSN. The Jets are never getting the name that's number one. That's just how it's been in the past. I remember Mark Stone, was rumored he was the number one name one year, and they went out and I think ended up, I might be confusing yours, but like Paul Stastny, when they got him, his name was out of nowhere. And then Kevin Hayes was the next year. Maybe he was a bit higher actually on the trade list that year, but they're not grabbing the number one guy. It's just how it's been. Another name that was rumored is Josh Manson, but he's got a no trade clause. So I don't even know why we were even mentioning him. Probably just dreaming because his dad played for the Jets. Maybe he would want to as well.
Get the Dave Josh connection, but
the Jets are all about the father-son connections. You look at Dave Lowry and Adam Lowry. I know we're going to get to that later.
Yeah, and that's actually coming up right after we
Oh,
finish talking about the good tease, though.
yeah.
Good tease.
Don't forget about Pierre-Luc Dubois and his father Eric Dubois, who's also an assistant coach with the Moose. So there you go, a lot of family
So,
connections there with the team.
family ties with the Jets. So yeah, I agree. And Nashville is just a funny situation. They, like you said, there was that one report from Elliot Friedman, like it's a fire sale. It was like anyone's on the table
Yeah.
to, wow, this team's actually in a playoff spot now. So we can't, they actually have to give this an honest run. But now we'll keep talking about the defense. And like you said, didn't really make a big splash in the market. So you're going forward with this group of guys, like you mentioned, Ville Heinola and Logan Stanley as well. Potential defensemen. A lot of potential with these guys. Do you think either one of them can crack the Jets top four and be an impact player down the stretch? We've only seen Heinola for 2 games this year, but do you think maybe either him or Stanley can step up and solidify that top four?
Yeah, if I had to pick one, I'd probably pick Heinola. I mean, he's more highly regarded as a prospect. As I mentioned, he was on the All-Star World Junior. He's been playing with the Moose, the top pair there. He's capable of playing some power play time. He can move the puck pretty well. Stanley, he's played very well, but it seems like they don't really trust him against higher caliber, more difficult line matching. And also, I mean, he's not really playing penalty kill time. He's not playing power play time. I think Stanley's right now he's a nice bottom pair defenseman. He's big. He has that presence, which I think is needed, and that they don't have a lot of. But Ville Heinola, I think he's the better talent. So maybe he would step in. Like if Josh Morrissey was injured, he would step in there, I think, no problem. But with Pionk and Morrissey and then Heinola, you have to wonder, well, I mean, are these guys, you're losing a lot of size there if you also have Heinola in two and you take out Stanley. But I would definitely pick Heinola. But I mean, we'll see what happens. But Pionk, I know he's a smaller guy, but he is not afraid to lay the body as he's done this year, having a great breakout season as well. But if you had to ask me one, I think Heinola's got the higher upside than Logan Stanley.
I'm in agreement with you there too. I was blown away by Heinola at the World Juniors this year. I thought he was really solid, and yeah, I'd like to see a little bit more of him down the stretch here for the Jets.
Yeah.
And with the way this team is constructed defensively, is this defense good enough? Being the weak point of the Jets, is this defense good enough to win a Stanley Cup?
I mean, you look at it and you have to say, probably like on the surface, probably not. But if you look at them as a part of the team where you have these forwards that can score from anywhere, you have a goalie who can definitely carry you, and we've seen goalies carry teams deep in the playoffs. So I definitely think the defense, they've shown the last 2 months now, they've been so. I think for the first bit of the season, they were giving up a lot of shots and making Hellbuck work pretty hard. But I really think in the last month and a half, 2 months, they've been solid. They've kind of shored up the team defense a little bit more. Would you like to have that number one guy like the Buffalo who they had when they went to the Western Final before? Sure, you would. He's not here. They're making do. I think Pionk's having a breakout season. Morrissey, he's not having the best year. Maybe he can go back to what we've seen before. But I think with the goalie and the forwards, I think they're in a good position. We've seen teams with defense. I think of that Pittsburgh team, which had Ron Hainsey on a top pair. Now they did have Crystal Tang. He's a bona fide number one, and the Jets don't have that. But I think they have a group of solid guys showing they can go, toe to toe with any teams in the North Division. So it's definitely, I think it's definitely possible. Not out of the question.
So you teased it earlier, the Adam Lowry contract. He signs 5 years by $3.25 million. A player who's really stepped up this year, like a lot of Jets forwards, we've seen a lot of players like Appleton, Kopp, and Lowry really take their game to another level this year. So what were your thoughts on Lowry being rewarded for his stellar play?
Yeah, I was super pumped. Adam Lowry's a player they drafted, and he's come along. He's been in that third line center role for a couple of years now. He's a big guy. He plays on the penalty kill. He can contribute a bit offensively here and there, but he's not really known for his offense. He's also not afraid to drop the gloves. He's a leader in the room, leader in the community. So I thought it was a really fair deal for both sides. The AAV, very fair for the Jets, $3.25 million. You have that locked in. And for him, he gets 5 years. And it seemed like in his availability yesterday, he's like, Winnipeg's where I want to be. I wanted a contract with term. And he seems really excited. They did hire his dad to be an assistant coach or in the offseason. They've downplayed how much that's a factor. I'm sure it definitely helps. I don't think it would be deciding, but I think there was a lot of fear that among Jets fans that, they would lose him to, to Seattle or something, although he was a UFA, so they would lose him to the UFA. But I think nice to know that he's going to be locked up. I mean, he's a heart and soul kind of player that you need on a team. And I'm a big Adam Lowry fan. He's, he's a guy who could have the C in the future, once Blake Wheeler, if he, were to retire or move on. So I think this is a great deal for both sides. Maybe you wonder about a guy when he's getting into his 30s who plays that kind of style, how his body's going to hold up. He's had, I think a couple of years ago, he had some injuries, but he's been great this year and when healthy. That he's a solid contributor.
So this Jets team right now, they lead the North Division in players with 20-plus points. They have 10. The next closest team, surprisingly, if you're just looking at the playoff teams, is Montreal with 8. Then you have Toronto with 7, and the Oilers have 5. So we know this team brings it in depth. Do you think this is the best forward group, though, if you're going 1 through 4 in the North Division?
Yeah, I think there's no question. I mean, you just mentioned, you see how many players are having, seasons of 20 points. They're having a number of guys with over 10 goals. I mean, even when they traded Laine and Rosovic, who are having great seasons with Columbus. You look at this Jets team right now, even without Blake Wheeler, the elite talent that you have, Connor, Ehlers, and Scheifele. I mean, these guys can score from just about anywhere on the ice with their shots. And they traded Laine. Connor stepped in on the power play from, with the left shot, and he's able to rip those one-timers pretty well. Scheifele's got a shot, Ehlers. But then you go down the lineup, Andrew Kopp having a absolute breakout season. I mean, he's always, very versatile, playing up and down the lineup. He can play center, he can play wing, and he's done that this year. He's filled in the top 6 with injuries, but he's also been steady on the line with Lowry and Appleton. And Appleton's a guy with more playing time. He could probably put up some more points, but on this deep team, he's been playing with Adam Lowry. And another guy, Matthew Perreault, I think a lot of Jets fans were worried about his contract, saying he's overpaid. They needed to buy him out. He's healthy this year. He's having an awesome season, and Nate Thompson and Trevor Lewis have been very solid veterans on the fourth line as well. Trevor Lewis just hitting a big shorthanded goal against Ottawa earlier this week. So from lines 1 through 4, I think the Jets go up against any team in the league. And you look at Edmonton, we know they're very top heavy. I think Toronto is maybe the closest. Montreal is, as you said, they've got a lot of guys, they've got a lot of very good players, but Montreal just doesn't have that elite scorer. So that's, they've got a bunch of 2 and 3 lines, but they don't have that number 1 line. So I'd say to take the Jets high-end talent and, the bottom 2 lines as well up against anyone in the North Division.
I'm in full agreement with you there. I think entering this season, people were enamored by the McDavid, Draisaitl, Matthews, Marner, that this depth Winnipeg Jets forward group, this really deep Winnipeg Jets forward group, just kind of got maybe cast aside a little bit more than it should. But we're seeing this season that they are lethal on every line, essentially. They bring it on 1 through 4, the Jets. So that's going to do it for the Winnipeg Jets forward group talk. Now we're going to move between the pipes. And yes, Connor Hellebuyck won the Vezina last year. He's having another good season. But to me, I think the story's been the emergence of Laurent Brossoit as a solid backup option for this team. Last year, his numbers were not great. He had a sub-900 save percentage, but this year, that number's around 916. What have you noticed about Brossoit's game that might be different than it was last year?
Yeah, I don't know what happened last year. 2 years ago, okay, they signed him from, he was on Edmonton, and I had never, wasn't very familiar with him, but he was great. He stepped in, and he didn't play a lot, but when he played, he was very solid. Last year, he had a down season. I don't know what it was, but I can't say I'm a goalie whisperer, but maybe he's just letting a few too many pucks in. This year, he's come in and he's looked solid. He's been square to the shooter. He's, if he can see he's kind of like Hellebuyck. If he can see a shot, it's going to be saved. Now, we had one bad game a couple weeks ago against Calgary. He let a couple soft ones in, but other than that game, he's been awesome. Every time he plays, I think, man, this guy needs to play more. You got to give Hellebuyck some more rest. He's one of the hardest work goalies in the league. Probably got to make sure he's fresh for the playoffs. And Brossoit came in again earlier this week and got a big win against Ottawa. And he's just been solid. He's stolen a couple games against Vancouver as well. So it's not like he's coming in and, making the saves. He's gone above and beyond. So I know that him and Hellebuck are very close. They're friends. They train together. They have that relationship. Maybe that's helped. I'm not sure, but he's been fantastic this year in a backup role. As you said, that's very good save percentage. And every time he plays, as I said before, I'm like, put this guy in some more. Let's go. So he's been, no one really talks about him, but he's definitely up there in terms of reliable backup goalies.
Entering this season, I was like, what's Winnipeg going to do? They weren't able to give Hellebuck too many nights off last year, or at least it didn't go very well when they gave Hellebuck nights off last year. Is it going to be more of the same this year? But there were glowing reports about Brossoit in training camp, and that's just carried throughout the regular season, which is obviously a big plus for the Winnipeg Jets and Connor Hellebuck, who, as I mentioned, is having another good season. His save percentage is a little bit lower than it was last year, but the goals against average is also a little bit lower, which on the flip side is a good thing. So with Hellebuck, I know if we were to talk about this recent game against Ottawa, it wasn't a great effort for him, but he bounced back strong against the Maple Leafs. And do you think he is able to steal a series on his own? If, say, the offense goes a little bit dry and we know where the defense is, do you think Hellebuck could keep the Winnipeg Jets in a series on their own? His own, I should say.
There's no question. I remember watching some of those games against Toronto a couple months ago. You had guys like Tavares and Nylander like looking up to the sky and go, why can't we score on this guy? He's definitely capable. And that's the thing with him. You mentioned, he had a rough game on Monday. But he's always coming back. The Jets record after they lose a game this year has been excellent. I think they've only lost back-to-back games once to Edmonton. But he's definitely up there. He can steal a series, steal a game. He comes, and I said before, if he can see a shot, if he's not screened, it's getting saved. And, he's got the glove, he's got the pad. He is definitely one of the elite goalies. And, he has games where you watch him, you're just like, man, this guy is pretty special. Goalie, he's got the Vezina trophy. He's very confident. He doesn't get rattled. He's one of the best speakers, post-game. He always believes that he should save that puck. So big believer in Hellebuck. And he's got the trophies and he's got the numbers. He's maybe had a couple shaky games here and there, but when his back's against the wall, like after a loss, that he's bringing his A game. So no questions for me with Connor Hellebuck.
Yeah, I agree. Just one of the best goaltenders in the league. And Michael, before we wrap things up, I want to talk to you. I don't know if you know this, but I'm from Barrie, Ontario, and in Barrie, there's a very small group, but a group of Colts fans who cheer for the Winnipeg Jets because of all of the connections between the two franchises. So I just want to run it off of you. Brian Little played for the Colts, went to the Jets. Alexander Burmistrov was drafted by the organization, didn't work out. It was not a good first-round pick in hindsight. Mark Scheifele. There's a long list, even the reverse connection where Dale Hawerchuk was the head coach of the Barrie Colts, played for the Winnipeg Jets. So I just wanted to let you know about that. I don't know if you were aware that there's a collection of people here in Barrie that do root hard for the Winnipeg Jets because of the ties between the junior club and the NHL team.
Yeah, I know Little had played for Barrie. I remember when Scheifele was in junior and Barrie went to the Memorial Cup. We were watching that here. I didn't know it was the reverse, that you guys, still follow those Jet players here. So that's pretty cool to hear that. I know there are fans from the Jets in Saskatchewan as well, just to the west of us. So I guess there's Jet fans all over the place.
Exactly. Yeah, I just thought a cool little tidbit just to drop, let you know that there's a pocket of Ontario here that roots for the Jets as well. So that's going to do it for this episode of Late Night Hockey. Thank you everyone for watching. And Michael, thank you so much for joining the show. It was a great episode.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks so much for having me. This was fun.